Welcome back, guys and gals. Matty back again. Today we're going to be talking some backpacking mistakes. Now, I'm sure like a lot of you guys, I've been seeing a ton of new backpackers out on trail this year. And I think a lot of that has to do with the COVID-19 thing going on. And people just simply aren't able to go out and do the normal traveling and stuff that they would regularly be doing in the summertime. So we're seeing a lot more people kind of getting into the backpacking sport. And like myself, I'm sure a lot of you guys are seeing a lot of backpacking mistakes being made. Now, with that said, this video is obviously going to be geared more towards the beginner backpackers. But if you guys click on these videos every week because you just like seeing my smiling face, you're going to get some of that as well. So diving right into these mistakes, I'm sure like myself, you guys are seeing a ton of new people just simply carrying far too much gear out on a backpacking trip. Now, where I see a lot of new backpackers specifically get into trouble when it comes to carrying far too much gear is especially in their clothes bag. There seems to be this idea that you need a full change of clothes for every single day you're out on a backpacking trip, and it's just simply not true. I guarantee you guys, nobody cares if you do not change your clothes when you're out there for 4 or 5 days on a backpacking trip. Myself personally, when I'm out on a backpacking trip, I carry a spare pair of socks, a spare change of underwear, a shirt to sleep in, some pants to sleep in, and some insulating layers, usually just a puffy jacket. And when it gets into shoulder season, I may throw an extra sweater in there as well. If you're a newer backpacker, you absolutely don't need a full change of clothes out on a backpacking trip. Nobody is gonna care if you're smelling bad and your clothes get dirty out on a trip. You just simply don't need to be carrying a full change of clothes because it adds a ton of weight to your backpack and it also adds a ton of bulk. And the more bulk you add to your backpack, it's inevitably going to force you to carry a bigger backpack, and the bigger backpack is going to weigh more as well. I know when you go into the outdoor stores, all of the outdoor retailers usually have a wall of Nalgene bottles and they're all over the place. And everybody seems to think that Nalgenes are the way to go for backpacking trips. And while they are bomb-proof and Nalgenes are fantastic, and obviously I have a couple and they're all loaded up with stickers, but I don't carry these on backpacking trips unless they're winter backpacking trips. We're not really jumping into winter backpacking trips, but if you guys are interested in some winter backpacking gear tips, I've got a video and I'll link it up over here over my shoulder for you guys. But just to give you guys an idea, I can carry 2 of these disposable 1-liter smart bottles, and 2 of these combined weigh less than a quarter of the weight of one 1-liter Nalgene bottle. So if you guys are a newer backpacker and you're wondering what all do I really need to carry in my backpack for a backpacking trip, or how can I shave some weight out of my backpack because I think my gear might be a little bit too heavy, what I'll do for you guys down in the description box below, I'll put links to a couple playlists that I made. The first one is going to be a bunch of backpacking gear loadouts that I've got, and the second one is going to be a whole bunch of different weight-saving backpacking tips. So if you guys are looking for that kind of information, head on down to the description box and check those out for sure. The next backpacking mistake we're going to talk about has to do with footwear. And no, today we're not getting into the debate on boots versus trail runners. But if that's a video you guys would be interested in, because I am currently a trail runners user and I did make the switch from boots a couple years ago. So if you guys are interested in that, let me know in the comments down below. But what we're going to talk about today in regards to footwear is simply just picking the right shoe or boot for your foot. The biggest piece of advice I can give you guys in regards to footwear is not going onto a Facebook group and just simply asking, hey, what's the best pair of backpacking boots or what's the best pair of trail runners to get for a backpacking trip? Because I guarantee you're going to get a plethora of different answers. My biggest piece of advice for you when it comes to buying a new pair of boots or a new pair of shoes is just simply going into a store and trying on a whack of different pair of boots and a whack of different pair of shoes and picking the pair of footwear that suits your feet and fits your foot the best. There's nothing worse than getting out on trail and finding out that a pair of boots that may work for one person doesn't work for you, and all of a sudden you're 2 days into a 4-day backpacking trip and you're dealing with some massive blister issues. So as we're talking about footwear that may not work out for you guys, it kind of ties into the next backpacking mistake that a lot of people make, and it's just simply not knowing their gear or not knowing how to use their gear. Be it their tent or a new backpacking stove like this guy here, the BRS 3000. By the way, I would say if you guys are looking for a canister stove to put your pot on, you cannot go wrong with the BRS 3000. To me, I think this is the best bang for your buck backpacking stove in terms of lightweight and usability. This thing performs almost as well as all the MSR Pocket Rocket stoves at a fraction of the cost. So if you guys are looking for a great inexpensive backpacking stove, I'll put a link in the description box down below for the BRS 3000. You can pick these things up for like 20 bucks on Amazon. But when it comes to using your gear, just simply testing it out at home. What I do when I pick up a new tent or a new hammock or any kind of new piece of gear for my backpacking loadout, I try it out at home. This summer when I recently got a new tent, I got the new 3F UL Lanchan 1.5P tent. I set it up at home a couple times to make sure that I knew exactly how to set it up and how everything worked on the tent, because the last thing I wanted to deal with is a tent out in the backcountry that I don't know how to set up. Make sure you're familiar with it, make sure you know how to use it, make sure you've got all the parts for it as well. The next backpack mistake we're going to talk about that I see a ton of people making has got to do with their insulation for their sleep system. Now, we're not really going to get into debate on quilts versus sleeping bags, but right here I've got my UGQ Bandit 20 degree top quilt. If you guys don't know what a top quilt is, or if you're just kind of wondering what the differences are between a top quilt and a standard sleeping bag, I've actually got a video on that, and I'll put a link to it up over here. But the biggest mistake that people are making when it comes to their insulation for their sleep system is simply picking the wrong rated sleeping bag for a backpacking trip. Now, if you guys are looking at top quilts from some of the custom cottage manufacturers, top quilts are always comfort rated. So when you're buying, say, a 20 Fahrenheit or a -7 C top quilt like I've got here, these are going to be rated sufficiently to get you down to that rating. Now, sleeping bags are rated very differently. A sleeping bag that's 20 Fahrenheit or -7 C is survival rated. Now, what the survival rating means, that sleeping bag is actually only really comfort rated to 30 Fahrenheit or 0 C. Now, I see a lot of new backpackers out there saying that they've got this, 20 Fahrenheit or -7 C sleeping bag, which for me up here in the Canadian Rockies is a pretty standard temperature rating. We do tend to get pretty cold temperatures up here, especially when you're high up in the Alpine. But going with a 20 Fahrenheit sleeping bag, most people find that it's just not enough when you get down into close to freezing or below freezing temperatures. So when it comes to sleeping bags, definitely make sure you're taking a look at the difference between the survival rating and the comfort rating. They almost always list them at the survival rating, which tends to throw people off, and it kind of puts people in a really rough spot sometimes. The next backpacking mistake we're going to talk about is probably one of the most common ones that I've seen throughout the summer, and it's got to do with this guy right here. This is my can of bear spray. Now, the issue with the bear spray is not the fact that people are not carrying it. Almost everybody that I run into on backpacking trips, or even day hikers that are out, and I see them when I went on a backpacking trip, they've all got their bear spray on them. The biggest issue that I see when it comes to bear spray is where people are carrying their bear spray. Now, if you guys watch any of my trip videos, you guys always see my bear spray hanging out right here in front of me on my chest. What I do for my bear spray is I run the chest strap through the thumb hole on my bear spray can, and it dangles right in front of my chest. Very easy to access. But where I see so many people going wrong with their bear spray is just simply dangling off the back of their pack or stuffing it into an outside pocket on the back of their backpack, and it basically renders it useless. I've also seen a ton of people taking their bear spray and creating a little tether and putting it through their thumb hole, and then having these little side holsters that kind of sit on the side of their backpack, and those are great too. But if you've got to sit there and fumble with a buckle, or you're fumbling with Velcro to try and pull your bear spray out, I can almost guarantee you guys it's going to be completely useless. I'm not sure how many of you guys and gals out there have been involved in a negative bear encounter. In my time backpacking, I have been bluff charged twice by grizzly bears, and I can tell you guys, your time to react is very, very small. Now, like I mentioned, I carry my bear spray right here dangling in front of my chest. On both of those bluff charges, only once I was actually able to have my bear spray in my hand and have the thumb guard almost pulled off before the bear was about 10 feet away from me. And luckily, like I said, these were bluff charges and the bears both peeled off and turned the other way. Now, if I had my bear spray dangling from my backpack, like say, a carabiner hooked up through the thumb hole and it's just swinging off the back of my pack, I'm gonna have to take my pack off, drop my pack on the ground, turn it around, grab my bear spray off. And by that time, if it's not a bluff charge, that bear is on top of me and I am toast. So if you guys are out hiking in bear country, absolutely do not carry your bear spray dangling from the back of your backpack like I see so many people doing. Now this is my last line of defense when it comes to bear protection. Obviously making a ton of noise is my first line of defense. If any of you guys have ever bumped into me on trail, you've probably heard me before you see me. I am yelling out, "Hey bear," every couple minutes or so, because the last thing that I want to deal with is a bear encounter. They're not really that fun. Next backpacking mistake we're going to talk about has to do with this guy right here. And we're not diving into the specifics of the water filter. This is my Katadyn BeFree. I absolutely love my water filter. But we're not diving into the specifics on water filters that people are carrying. It's how people are storing their water filters at night. And especially right now, the season we're getting into, kind of getting into the shoulder season. I'm sure for a lot of you guys and gals, overnight temperatures are dipping to below freezing or very close to. And water filters are very susceptible to freezing up and becoming ineffective after they've been frozen. This is a mistake that I have personally made, and it really sucks to get out on a backpacking trip and find out the next morning that your filter is completely pooched. So when you start getting into overnight temps that start dipping close to freezing or below freezing, my biggest suggestion is take your water filter inside your sleep system with you. I personally always carry a couple extra Ziploc bags with me, and I'll just put my water filter in a Ziploc bag and just stuff it into the foot box of my top quilt, and that helps keep my water filter from freezing up overnight so that I can use it the next morning. So as I mentioned at the start, this video is a little bit more geared towards the beginner backpackers. So if you guys are beginner backpackers and you're kind of figuring out your backpacking loadout and looking for some gear to get, what I've got over here is 2 videos on budget backpacking gear. So when you guys are done watching this one, head over and check out either of those videos. And as always, guys, I am Matty. Thank you guys so dang much for watching, and I will see you guys on the next one.